I want to make clear that I'm not releasing this game or continuing to work on it. This is because the website this project was hosted on received a takedown notice by Cartoon Network, and I'm not trying to violate anyone's copyright. What's shown in this project is fan work done by me and others listed in the description. If you want a more detailed story of what happened, there's a link to a video that explains it really well in the description. FusionFall Legacy started as an idea to improve the original game, and was powered by the Unity engine. I worked on this project for years as a programmer. I've worked on every iteration this project has gone through, and I've seen it evolve into what it is today. In total, I have written over 10,000 lines of code for this project. I'm a huge fan of FusionFall, and I wanted to share what I and many others have spent so much time and hard work on. This video is going to highlight how this fan game would play by showing you various clips of the project. I worked on this project for years, and I wasn't the only one who did. Tons of talented people have helped out with this project, so please go check them out in the description. Before I start showing some examples of the different features in action, I want to talk about some general improvements that were made. The movement was altered to be crisper and a lot more fun. The player was able to move 360 degrees independent of the camera, and a lot of time was spent on getting the jump to feel just right. In FusionFall, jumping was a little bit floaty, so we increased gravity to make the movement feel a lot more realistic. This was done because the game was planned to have a lot more platforming sections, and the movement needed to be changed in order to accommodate for that. Along with that, a subtle improvement was made by adding footstep sounds when the player walks. Vehicles also got a drastic update to how they worked. In the original, they were rented for a certain number of days and just gave the player a basic speed boost. Instead, they're a lot more interesting. Once a vehicle is purchased, it has a fuel indicator that once runs out, the vehicle becomes unusable, so the player would have to buy more or get more as an item drop. Vehicles also now have acceleration, which makes them a lot more fun and also makes it feel like a racing game. So now over here, I'm going to talk to this NPC. This is the Designated Sailor. This was an NPC that had a pretty significant role in one of the main mission plots, but now they're over here in Debug Land, and they actually have one of the debug missions that I developed. This is Prizzy's Big Day. This was just a test mission to kind of test out how the mission system works, so I'm going to walk through it. One thing to notice is when I talk to the Designated Sailor that the NPC UI is very different. This menu over here is pretty reminiscent of the original, but they now have this new dialogue box that they say every single time that you interact with them. And then you can also click what's up, and you can figure out kind of what's going on with this NPC, and this dialogue would change as you progress through the game. And it was a really unique way to kind of interact and get to know the NPCs a little bit better. So if we go into this mission, Prizzy's Big Day, the Designated Sailor is going to tell me what I need to do. And I guessed it, it's Prizzy's Big Day. So we're going to go get Prizzy some balloons. And so I'm going to accept this mission. And so for Prizzy's Big Day, I need to go to the forest, so I'm going to head over there. So over here, we can see here are the balloons that we need to grab, and if I go over to them, we grabbed the balloons, and now we're going to go talk to Not Mandark. So over here, we have Not Mandark. This was an NPC that was used as a placeholder for a different NPC that never got finished. And now Not Mandark is just chilling here in Debug Land, and is going to help us with Prizzy's Big Day, so I can talk to Not Mandark.
You want a mission?
And so I can advance Prizzy's Big Day. And so Not Mandark was also planning on getting something Prizzy for his big day. So we're gonna go get what definitely Not Mandark was gonna get Prizzy. So we're gonna go over and grab these eggs. So here I am in this keep out danger zone that some fusion spawns have decided to call home, and I'm going to go over a couple of the combat mechanics, because combat works very different, and it's probably the biggest feature change. So combat has two different stages. It has a melee stage and a ranged stage, and you can switch back and forth between them in combat to best match the situation. So right now I'm holding a lightning sword, which is a melee weapon. So if I enter combat mode here, my camera shifts over to the side and this reticle in the center of the screen shows up, and this kind of tells me if I have an enemy targeted. And so if I swing my sword, it spawns a hitbox in front of my character that does some damage. But since there's no enemy in front of me, nothing happens. So for these enemies, I need to switch over to my ranged weapon and target them with the reticle, and it turns red once it shows that someone's targeted. So you can switch back and forth really easily between these two modes of combat to best adjust the situation. So depending on how the enemy fights, you're going to want to switch back and forth. So sometimes it'll be better to use a ranged weapon, and sometimes it'll be better to use a melee weapon. So I'm going to go into this ranged weapon here. I'm going to find a fusion spawn and I'm going to target them. And so as it gets close, I can switch to my melee weapon and attack it. And it spawned an egg here that we need for our mission. So I can collect that, and now I have a new egg. So one thing that's also really important about the combat system now is that it's all hitbox based, which means that if I'm sidestepping like this, I can actually avoid the enemy attacks and avoid taking any damage. So if I take advantage of the fact that there is knockback on my melee weapon, I can try to avoid taking any damage. So that's kind of a base level of the combat system. There's a lot more depth to it that I don't really have a demo to show, but specific boss fights would require different combat mechanics. There is an ability to dodge attacks that isn't really usable when you're fighting a close-range fusion spawn like this, but different attacks would be dodgeable, so that boss fights were a lot more move-based, and you really had to react to the move they were about to do to avoid taking damage, which was going to be critical because the boss would actually be able to take you out if you didn't avoid their moves. So now that we've collected all the eggs we need for our mission, we're going to go back to Not Mandark and finish off this mission. So here we are.
Let me guess, you want a mission?
We can talk to Definitely Not Mandark, and we can finish it off. And now we finally have everything we need so that Prizzy can finally have the best big day ever. So we can complete this mission.
Got it! Get out of my sight!
And that is an example of how the mission system works. I want to preface this section of the video by saying a lot of the footage you're going to see is really rough and unpolished. Multiplayer really didn't get a lot of time in development, so I apologize in advance for that. Multiplayer was always planned to be in Legacy, but later in the development cycle, we decided we were going to shift focus away from Legacy being an MMO and kind of direct it to be a much smaller scale in that regard. And the way we were doing that was we were going to have multiplayer rooms that would be openable by different players. So this multiplayer screen is what would show up when you first started the game, and you can click host to host your own room, and you just start by filling out the name, and this could be anything, so this is something that your friends would be able to search for when they were trying to find your room. And then you could limit the number of players in there, and then if you wanted to, you could also enable a password. So if you didn't want anyone to be able to join, you could just have your friends, and you could enable a password that they would need to enter in order to join your room. So now on the other side, when you're ready to join a game, you just pull up the game, and there's going to be a list of all the open rooms, and you just click on the one that you want, and then you just join the game, and you're in the multiplayer, and that's how you connect with different people. So the reason we went with this system was that we thought it played better in the game, and there was also a lot of technical advantages. For one, there wouldn't be any costs associated with running the game because people would be hosting their own games rather than running through a dedicated server. We would run a server list on our website, and we would do something called NAT hole punching as well, which meant people didn't have to port forward their game, meaning that there would be seamless connection. However, if our server list went offline, people would still be able to play the game through manual connection. This meant that Legacy was going to have some longevity, and it would have been able to be played forever. I hope you all enjoyed this feature showcase of FusionFall Legacy. I spent a lot of years working on this project, and I'm very sad that I'll never be able to release it, but I'm glad that I could show off what I've worked on with you today. If you're interested in anything that you saw in this video, I am going to be continuing to post to my YouTube channel different Unity tutorials, going through how exactly I made all of these different features and how you can recreate them for your own projects if you're interested in game development. I wasn't the only one who worked on this project. There is a huge list of people that were able to make this possible, and all of them are listed down in the description below, so please go check them out. They are super talented people, and none of this would have been possible without any of them as well. If you want any more details on any of these features, I have been posting to my Twitter a lot, different video clips and explanations for different features, so please go check me out there if you're curious for a little bit more of a deeper dive on anything. Also, feel free to leave questions in the comments. I can respond to them as I can. If you're curious about how something worked or you want a further explanation, I would be happy to answer it.